Today, we're joined by Dr. Christopher Loffredo, a cancer epidemiologist at Georgetown University, whose career has taken him all over the world in pursuit of better cancer prevention and research. His new book, Trotting for Science, Tales of Fieldwork, Folklore, and Fumbling Through Foreign Lands, blends science, travel, and some truly unforgettable stories from the field. It's part adventure, part education, and part comedy as well.
Well, hello there, sir. Nice to meet you. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I am very good. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I love the title, Trotting for Science. How fun is that? That's already fun. That already takes like now I got to learn something mentality. I hope nobody feels like that, but yeah, such a great title. And I love, so you take readers on this like whirlwind journey from Egypt to Asia and Africa and all over the place in the pursuit of answers that could change the future of medicine. That's kind of cool.
I'm a modest person in general, but I have to say, yes, in my heart, I feel like it's cool. And I feel really blessed to have had these opportunities to go all over. And, a lot of people say no. A lot of my colleagues in science, given such an opportunity to go to another country and do work, will say, and partly maybe a little fear of it. And there's always a part of that for me too. But also, being in our comfort zones. And to do this kind of work like I've done on the global stage, you have to extend yourself a little bit and get out of that comfort zone and be open to new, experiences. And so that's the pattern of my whole career is, finding out about an opportunity to do something in some place and then just sort of diving in and seeing how it would be. So thank you for your comment about the title. It was a lot of fun to think about titles.
Yeah.
And to think about the illustrations too. It was a lot of fun to take these stories and to make them try to come to life.
I love that you love the process of the book writing too, because there's some people, sometimes I'll ask somebody like, what was the worst part? What was the best part?
Yeah.
And for me, I always kind of say like, everything's the best part. Like I love all the parts of it. So I love to hear that you enjoyed, the different aspects. Some people just want to sit down and write the book.
When you're having fun, I think it shows. If you're a performer and you're loving what you do, it shows.
Yeah.
And this is how I approached the book. It was not a chore. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wasn't in the mood on a particular day to do some writing, there was so much fact checking just to make sure I spelled things right. And, my notebook says we went to St. Petersburg. Is that really what we did? Is that just going back into notes and going online and looking for things. So there was always something fun to think about or to add to it or to work one day with the illustrations, which my editor, Terry, did such a fine job with in this book. I mean, in my view, kids, love books with pictures, and you cannot write a child's book without good pictures. But a book like this, in order not to be scary with that word science in the title, Trotting for Science, I wanted to make it fun. And I'm glad that you appreciated the fun that I had with it.
And you touched on something that it was making me think about it. Like typically when we, and especially children probably, think about scientists, we have them mentally locked in this one lane, right? Where like you're in a lab coat and, you clock in and you're there all day staring in, microscopes and all those types of things. But you kind of flip that on its head really. And you're like, oh, no. There's quite an adventure happening here. I know that's not necessarily the norm. Can you talk to that a little bit? Like tell us how you got started, how you got on this path, and just I want to know the whole adventure. Like tell me the whole thing.
Well, I was once that scientist in the white lab coat in a laboratory because my PhD, my dissertation work involved doing experiments on the lab bench, and I was looking at genetic influences but I learned a lot from that. And I learned the value of, designing research carefully, a lot of quality control at every step. There were days when nothing would work and I'd have to try to figure out, is it the temperature today? Is it this enzyme that's expired? Is it, eliminating all these possibilities? It taught me so much that really could be translated into life skills. You don't have to be at the bench to want to have, say, a study on liver cancer like I have done in Egypt and in Thailand. That's well designed and well thought through and has had a lot of input from different experts. So, you asked sort of what this journey was like. It started for me with Australia. And I was looking at different programs to apply to for graduate school. As a biology major coming out of my undergraduate work at Hartwick College, yay, Hartwick, wonderful place. Private liberal arts college that really taught me how to think and how to really just appreciate the world, because the liberal arts education, even though if you're a biology major, you're still taking those courses in literature and a language and so forth. It gives you a really broad appreciation of the world. So I was looking for where to go. I knew I wanted to do maybe a master's degree and a PhD. I liked zoology a lot. So I was interviewing, and this guy at the University of Maryland named Dr. Jerry Borjo, I talk about in the book, he had a desire for a graduate student to join his group and go to Australia and work on bowerbirds, of all things. I knew what they were, but I really didn't know what this work would be like. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity. If he's got, travel funds for us to go there and do this work, that sounds really interesting. So I jumped in with both feet and had to set up a field camp and had to manage a team of people. I had no training for any of that.
Wow.
But you jump in and you do it. And my own brother, who was in college at the time that I was in Australia, he read my book and said, I can't believe you did these things at the age of 22.
Yeah. I was going to ask you how old you were. 22.
22. Wow. Yeah. And he said, but you figured it out.
Yeah.
And that's true. I figured it out as I went along, and it didn't bother me that I didn't know things. I knew I could figure stuff out. I knew I was smart enough to figure out how to open a bank account on my own in Australia, how to get the car serviced. I figured I could work my way through those things. So it set up a pattern for me, though, because that sort of fearlessness.
Yeah.
Jump in and try this new thing. This is a thing I tell a lot of my students. Don't have a tunnel vision about your career. Be open to things that come along, opportunities, explore them. If it doesn't work, all right, go back to your path that you thought you had for yourself, but be open to things that could change your life potentially. You don't know if you don't try. So yeah, it set up a pattern for me with different studies then in different countries.
Wow, that is just incredible. And I love the message underneath all of that. Right on top of all of it really is to, just do the things in spite of fear. Everybody's afraid. Everything is a little scary when it's unfamiliar. We talked about that before we even started. Everything is a little bit scary when it's unfamiliar, but when you take that leap, and I love that leap of faith in yourself as well, that that I can figure it out attitude. And it's so true. If people, particularly the young people, so you said you were 22, at that age, when I think of the 22-year-olds that I know right now, they're not like that. And that's a generalization. That's not the rule, but that is representative of a lot. Now so I don't know where you're going to tell me where about in your career you went into being a cancer epidemiologist. Yeah. I just want to pat myself on the back for not mispronouncing that. Could I have a moment?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So having returned from my Australian adventures and went back to University of Maryland at College Park, where I was enrolled, and finished my master's thesis, completed it. Then I thought, okay, what next? And so I decided I might just take a little time off and try to figure things out. And so in the newspaper, I was desperate enough for a job to just look in the employment pages in the Washington Post, because I live in the Washington, D.C. area. And I saw an advertisement at the University of Maryland Medical School in Baltimore that talked about a data analyst. And I thought, well, that's one of my skill sets. I mean, I came back with reams of data from working in Australia in the field. And I learned how to do data analysis, and I learned statistics. And so I called up, and it was a life-changing moment. At that point, I was getting married. I wanted a job. I wanted an income.
Job is
good. Being a master's level zoologist, I was eking out a living doing some scientific editing, writing some articles for children's nature magazines and things like that. But it wasn't going to pay the bills for a married couple. So I got this job, and I have to say, I loved it. I was working for a pediatrician at the medical school, and she had started an enormous study, the biggest that was ever done in history, on families that had a baby born with a heart defect.
Wow.
And she compared this group of about 4,000 babies to a control group of babies who had been born healthy and fine. And there were interviews done with the parents. And my job was to try to sort through that and see what was different. Was it something about mother's illness? Was it something about the environment that these families were living in? Were there genetic things happening? And so I was the data analyst, but I loved the field of epidemiology because it's concerned with what are the causes of human diseases? And then knowing that, how do we prevent? How do we make life easier? How do we, control epidemics and things like that? I thought the subject matter was fascinating, and I wanted to do a PhD in it, and that's what
Wow. I mean, what incredibly valuable work, first of all. Second of all, your attention to detail. Like, you're obviously a guy, numbers is your happy place, or at least one of your happy places. Does it come naturally to you? Were you always that kid? Like growing up?
I was. I was. I had wonderfully supportive parents and relatives, and my godmother, Aunt Teresa, bless her, she passed, but she was always buying me books. And she noticed that I love nature. I was a typical boy who liked to go out and turn over rocks and find the bugs underneath. And she would buy me these little field guides for kids that would say, this is a larva, and this is a red ant, and this is a carpenter ant. And I just loved it and was nurtured in that way by, all kinds of aunts and uncles and cousins who encouraged me to be that kind of kid who loved nature and loved to explore. And I would collect things and number them carefully. And I found out from somebody you should have a little notebook that said, okay, it was in New Hampshire on the 9th of May in 1964, when I found this fossil in such and such a place. And so I had like this little scientific notebook at the age of 8. So I was always that person.
Yeah, that's so cool. Did you know when you were taking your notes, when you're doing all of these things, was this a planned book, or was this wow, I have all of this, I bet this could be a book? Like, how did the book come to life?
It was the second way.
Really?
I had been told by my parents over and over again, you should write a book. All these stories. And see, whenever I traveled, I wrote letters back home to mom and dad and to my godmother, to my wife back home, to my nieces and nephews, lots of postcards all from all over the world, like, where's Uncle Chris today, kind of thing. And people saved them, which I never expected. I don't know why, but out of the blue one day, my mom handed me this raft of letters that she had saved and said, here, it's time for you to take these. I took them and I thought, wow, armed with this and my memory and all my photographs, which are my trigger. If I've taken a photo and I put it in an album or something, or I've organized it, on the computer, the act of doing that creates a memory for me. It's like a sort of a muscle memory thing. And so armed with all of that stuff, I thought, wow, I could really turn all of this into a book. So it was never planned. It was just something that at some point when things started accumulating, I was also getting older. I was in my 50s at that point, and I thought, what if I start to forget some of this stuff? Wouldn't that be bad if it didn't get written down before I'd forgotten many details? So it kind of all came together, and I had the opportunity to do a sabbatical. This is a tradition that's in universities, because I'm a university professor. I was eligible to take a paid sabbatical for 6 months, and it was my mission to write this book. So perfect.
Wow. And that actually answered my author nerd question, was how long did it take you to write the book? Because I always love asking that.
Yeah.
How long was it from the beginning to publishing?
It's actually a lot more than just the 6 months sabbatical. I finished with, I think, all the way up through when I began the studies in Thailand. And this was 2016 when I wrote sort of what I thought was the first complete draft of the book. But I didn't completely finish it. And so then I thought, well, I know I'm going to Thailand next year to begin this new adventure. Maybe I should wait another year until I got some stories from that, and I'll put that in. And then came an opportunity to do work in Russia. And I thought, well, I'll wait another year, and I'll see if there's any, worthy material there for the book. And so I finished in 2024.
Wow. I love your patience. I love your patience. I'm so impatient. I'm like, I want to write. If I want to write it, I want to write it 5 minutes ago and be done. I love that you waited and you had the foresight to realize, like, wait, there's a lot more.
Yeah. In a way, I wish I hadn't waited. Because I think 10 years ago, the business of publishing was still in the older mode. This is not my first book. I've actually published medical type textbook works before, where there's a room full of people at a publishing house who are doing the typesetting, who are going over your book with a fine-tooth comb. Now we're in the age of AI.
Right.
And the tools are vastly different, and the whole business has shifted. And it was scary to me and difficult to understand at first. And the AI tools even a year ago are not as good as they are now.
So true.
And my publisher used some of them, and it was a learning curve. It really was. So in a way, I do wish I kind of done it under the old system, which I knew.
Sure. Right.
But under this brave new world, we have fabulous tools for illustrating, for example. I love what's in my book because those are AI tools, and I never would have known on my own how to do that. So in a way, I really did benefit from the AI revolution by coming on the scene now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally get what you're saying. When I first started writing, same thing, everything was pretty traditional. AI was, it was really not, it wasn't a common conversation. It certainly was it off conversation, but nothing like today. And, like everything else that humans get a hold of, I'm sure you can agree with me, there's terrible and there's wonderful. And,
Mhm.
the only thing that ever ruins anything good is people.
Yeah.
But when you're using it for good purposes and to add value to the world, it's just tremendous.
Well,
I am a fan in that regard, right? Let's kind of get into like the meat of the book a little bit. So I love this. Your book mixes serious science with humor. Humor is my favorite thing ever. Was that intentional from the start, or did the funny moments just kind of happen naturally? Like, I feel like this is an extension of your personality.
yeah, it probably is. But in a way, too, we're talking about people. And
Yeah.
one of the lessons for me is people are people, whether we're talking about Eswatini in Southern Africa or Brazil or anywhere else. We're more alike than we're different. And so people like to tell stories and people like to laugh with each other. And scientists are the same. Sorry, but we're just people too. And,
What?
and really, like, one of the key lessons for me in this whole lifelong journey is you have to get to know your team in the other country or here, wherever you are. You have to get to know your team and your people. And one of the best ways to do that is you take a coffee break together and
Mm,
you talk about family and foods that you love and the relative who's driving you crazy. You talk about anything but the science. Right?
yeah.
We have room for that. We're already going to do that later today, right? Then the dinner with your colleagues or
Mm,
lunch. You've got to get people out of the lab, out of the hospital, out of the clinic, wherever they are, out of the governmental office. Get people sitting and talking with each other. And the humor just pours out because they realize, oh, this Dr. Chris from the States, he's not so bad. He's like one of us. And I've always tried to be that kind of person who listen. That's so important to go to some
mhm.
place, not saying, oh, look at everything that's wrong here. There is a lot wrong.
Sure.
It's a lot that has to be worked on. But I learned that it's better to say, okay, but what are the strengths too?
Mm,
There are places, there are people, there are institutions, there are strong points that we could build on to address those problems. And so I don't know how I figured that out along the way, but I did somewhere along the way. So, yeah, I think using humor to break the ice with people, to get to know people better,
mhm.
to break down those barriers, it came kind of naturally to me. And when other people told me that my stories were funny, it sort of opened up a door for me to say, well, let me keep being this way
Mhm.
and not be stiff and formal with people, in these scientific pursuits. I have
Yeah,
so much fun. And it's been really productive, I have to say. So
absolutely.
it sort of validates that I was right about that
You're
approach.
totally right, totally right.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
listening to you, it's like, oh, absolutely. It's I don't know if it's like a rare quality, but it's such a great quality to be able to have both like the analytical mind and the intuitive mind too. Like just to be able to intuitively understand how to communicate with people to get the best out of them and yourself and the situation, right? So
Yeah.
kudos to you for just, it sounds like instinctively just kind of knowing that and figuring it out. It's
I
wonderful.
had great mentors too, I have to say.
Yeah.
The pediatrician, Dr. Charlotte Ferenz at the University of Maryland, she passed away about 8 years ago.
Mm.
But I learned so much from her. And a lot of it had to do with taking care of your people. From her point of view, she was the big queen and we all
Sure.
were all her team working for her. But she took care of us and she fought battles for us
Mm.
with administration and things like that and make sure we got raises when other people weren't getting them and things like that. The value of taking care of people and looking after their emotional needs and sitting down with them. Even she was this high and mighty person, but she would just bring in her bag lunch and sit down with you at your desk and chat. And
Love that.
all my mentors have been that way. I don't know why. Maybe I gravitated to them. They
Mm.
seemed down to earth like that. But I learned these lessons from people who liked mixing the science with fun.
Yeah. Tell me, if you will, if there is one particular place that you've been or one particular story that stands out to you most of all. And I know it's probably in the book, so I won't ask you to tell me, but give us a little tease of one of your favorite moments.
Well, gosh, a lot of them are in Australia, and it's because
Yeah.
it was that formative experience for me, but they're scattered through all the books. Okay. In Australia, I was with a team, but for part of the time, I had to stay there alone. People
Mm.
had to go back to the United States to do various things, and I was the one paid to be there and manage the camp and everything. But there were these wonderful, and this was in the outback.
Okay.
But nearby, the nearest neighbors, because I was in a state park, but just
Mhm.
outside the boundaries were farm families, three of them. And I got to know them all really well to the point where the two grandmothers in these families more or less adopted me. And I always call them
Aw.
Australian grandmothers. Okay, so the cookie wars. And I really did not, this sounds like I'm manipulative, but it started out quite innocent. One of the two grandmothers invited me to dinner, knowing I was alone. It was a wonderful thing. Went, had dinner with her family, but she sent me back to my little camp with a tin of cookies that she had.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. So the other grandma, grandma number two, she found out that grandma number one had done this, and they were rivals in many ways, these two grandmothers. And so
Yeah.
grandma number two invites me to dinner. And during the dinner, she said, "Oh, I heard you were at so and so's house for dinner." I said, "Yeah." And was it? Did you have a good time? Yes, I did. And she sent me home with cookies. I didn't say that to manipulate her, but grandma number two quickly put together a little basket of cookies that she had in the house,
Oh,
and thus began the cookie wars.
oh,
At
that's
this point, I didn't know what I was doing. So going back to grandma number one, how was dinner with grandma number two? Oh, it was great. And she sent me home with quite a selection of cookies. I didn't
oh,
know
that's
she had time to make
that's
them all.
so
The
funny.
next thing you know, grandma number one now is making a cake and sent me home with a whole cake. So I kept that going for a while before they talked to each other. And
Oh, that's
stories and stuff.
awesome. Thank goodness you were only 22 because
Right.
you probably like your metabolism was probably fierce
Yeah,
and didn't even phase
absolutely.
you. Yeah,
So
we could.
skinny. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
I love that. So now at the heart of everything, of course, is cancer research.
Yeah,
What motivates you to keep doing this kind of work year after year?
the need.
Yeah.
Many of the cancers I work on, all of them actually, um, have some positive points in the sense that science is discovering new and better treatments with low side effects. You may have heard of immunotherapy. That's a
Mhm.
big thing that's changing the face of cancer treatment, but still there's so much suffering. And my point of view on cancer has always been, okay, we need these advances in medicine, but why not stop it from ever taking hold in the first place? That would be so much better.
Mm.
And that's what's driven me is liver cancer, which one of the major ones I work on, kills more people around the world than any cancer except lung cancer.
I had no idea. I
Yeah,
did not
because
know
other
that.
countries have a much bigger burden than we do in the
Yeah.
United States. And that cancer is not easy to manage medically
Mhm.
because people have no symptoms in the early stage. There's no good screening test for it. And people don't even know they have it until very late stage.
Mm.
So it's not very treatable. And they got it because of underlying diseases like alcoholism
Wow.
or hepatitis B or C. By the
Mhm.
time they get to cancer, their bodies are already racked with the effects of those diseases. And so it's not easy to treat them. And they may die of all this other stuff, and it's not actually the cancer that kills them.
Mm.
So again, why aren't we preventing alcoholism? Why aren't we preventing or immunizing against hepatitis B, which has a great vaccine available?
Mhm.
To me, that urgent need for prevention and the fact that in different countries of the world, there are different factors driving the liver cancer epidemic. In
Mm.
Egypt, it was hepatitis C.
Okay.
In Thailand, they also have hepatitis C and B, but they also eat fish that's infested with liver flukes.
Oh, wow.
Horrible topic. It's a parasite.
Yeah.
It's in the raw fish, not sushi, but
Yeah.
fish that they catch, and it's a staple of the diet, especially for poor people in some
Mhm.
areas. These little silvery fish are infested with this parasite, has eggs in it. They swallow it, the eggs hatch, and these little worm things go
Mhm.
down to their gallbladder and
Wow.
liver and cause a certain kind of cancer there.
Mhm.
And you would think, well, if they knew this, wouldn't they stop eating this fish? So we had to do the research to show that really was true, that
Sure.
really was the major thing driving their epidemic. But then it's like, well, now what do we do about it? Do we just say, now shame on you, stop eating that fish?
Mhm.
That's not going to work. That's really simplistic. And
Right.
so I went to villages and through
Mhm.
translators, I asked a lot of questions about this. You've heard of this. Yes, we've heard of this. The doctors tell us about this,
Wow.
but you're still eating it. Oh, we love this. We don't want to give this up. And then
Oh,
you think, well, switch to a different kind of fish. No, there really isn't anything as
no.
as these little silverfish. And for poor people, this is probably their major protein.
Sure.
They don't have eggs, they don't have cattle, they don't have a lot of pigs.
Mhm.
So if this is taken away,
What
what
do
are
they
they going
have?
to eat?
Sure.
So then we come to, can we cook this fish? Because that will
Mm.
destroy these eggs and it will be perfectly safe. So I'm thinking now, okay, we need to think about design some kind of intervention that will move people toward cooking or fermenting. They like to ferment the fish. This is like
Okay.
some vinegar,
Mhm.
cilantro, and chili paste in there.
Which would also kill the parasites. It
And
would kill. Okay.
yeah,
Ah,
lots of cilantro. It smells wonderful.
yeah.
But I wouldn't dare eat it at this point.
Right.
But that fermentation will kill the eggs. And so if
Mhm.
we can move a little bit from where we are now, which is the raw fish, towards the fermented, that's culturally valued anyway,
Mhm.
and get advocacy going. So you'll see in the book, I was so fortunate to get involved in a project sponsored by the royal family of Thailand
Mhm.
and to have been invited many times to the royal palace and to present the results of our work. I would love to see if we can get some advocacy
Mm.
from one of the princesses in the royal family who's a health scientist, and say, Princess Chuliborn, would you consider doing some public education message on this, lending your good name? She's a very influential person. If we can have that kind of advocacy within the culture, that would maybe help also to create this change. So it's just an example of why I think research has to see what is the problem, number one.
Yeah.
And then number two, knowing the problem, investigate it thoroughly enough to know what are those angles and what can be
Right.
done for the prevention side. So I really look forward to the continuation of that story. So I'll have to write another book.
Yes, you will. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, when's the next book? Let's
Yeah,
go. I need the rest of the story.
I know. I have a lot of stories that I didn't put in
Yeah.
book number one that I'll go back to. And then the adventures have continued. This book doesn't cover Brazil, where I had a recent project going on childhood cancer, a very fascinating story. And I went to Eswatini in Botswana in Africa to look at a problem there. And so there's these stories to tell. So yeah, I have enough material for another book.
Yeah, you do. So first of all, just such incredible work that you're doing, and so just so amazing. But it's got to be so amazing for you to see, not necessarily the end of the story, but that one you're talking about, where you see the results of your work and you see the changes being made in the lives of these people. That's got to be one of the most gratifying things ever, right?
It is, and it makes all the blood, sweat, and tears worth it. And
Yeah.
the length of time this takes is not to be believed. I think it's scary for young people coming into
Sure.
the field. When I say I had to wait 10 years to see Egypt implement better laws, better controls on infection control and on tobacco smoking regulation, it took 10 years. But I'm a patient person, as you already mentioned.
Yes.
That didn't throw me off. It's still, I wish the pace of change was faster, but it's just the reality we live in. Governments move very slowly, and hearts and minds take a long time to change, but they change. And so you're quite right. That's a kind of a gratification.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be tough though in the middle of that process,
Right.
seeing it so clearly, right? So you're seeing the problem and the solution so clearly, but it's like, hitting your head against a brick wall, trying to get the people who need to hear the message to run with that message. And you gave so much grace in your response to that, and seeing so much more of the picture with the fish. And I'm sorry, that was Thailand. Was that Thailand?
That was Thailand.
Yeah, in Thailand. But you gave so much grace to those people and understanding their limitations and their situation instead of just being frustrated with them. And just so many valuable lessons here. Which leads me to, who did you have in mind with this book? Like, who's your target audience? I mean, to me, it sounds like everybody. Like, everybody should be reading this. I'm giving a plug right here. Everybody should read this book. So I don't care your age or anything.
It is a little tricky. You're right, because it's kind of in between traditional categories. It is travel. People who love travel would love this. It is science, not heavy science, but there's a thread of science in it. It is a bit of culture and art and architecture that's in there too. It's humor. For sure, it's humor. And that's, a cornerstone of my approach to the book was to put in all those funny stories, because it's really what kept me going, on a dark, rainy night, stuck in some place and the planes are canceled and all that. To remember those stories and to treasure those stories, it kept me going through some pretty dark moments. But this is a question like, who's who are the readers I wanted to reach. I wrote this for myself and my family originally. And then I thought, well, no, I think there's actually enough in here that more people in the general public might like to read such a thing. And I've gotten feedback from people I barely know.
Nice.
Who said, oh my gosh, I loved your book. I laughed out loud. And the person who said that to me the first time, I thought I did it.
Yes.
I got this humorless person, it's a scientist, I'm not naming names, who loved it and said that they were reading it and they just burst out loud and like the family said, what? What's that book you're reading? I didn't expect that it would be that universal. So now we gotta spread the word on this. So
absolutely.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh my goodness, it's such a pleasure and an honor. I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation, and it doesn't matter what your interest is. This book is your interest.
Right. Don't worry about that word science. Read the subtitle. That's about the field work and the folklore and fumbling through foreign lands. That's it right there.
I love that. I love it. Do me one last favor. Will you tell everyone where they can find your book? If you have any book signing events, anything going on, a website, tell them anywhere they can find you and your work.
Right now we're on Amazon and you can find my book there, and also on barnesandnoble.com. Barnes & Noble locally in Bowie, where I live, is doing a book signing event for me this summer. I don't have the date yet, so that will be posted soon on ChristopherAlbertLoffredo.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. This was such a joy and an honor. Thank you again for joining me today. I know my audience is going to absolutely love you.
You are welcome, and thank you.
Absolutely. All right, my friends, thank you all for joining us. We will see you in the next episode. Take care.
You've got a story worth sharing. Now it's time to tell it well. Whether you're an author, entrepreneur, influencer, or podcast guest, stepping in front of the camera or microphone can feel overwhelming. On the other side of the mic is your practical, encouraging guide to becoming a confident, authentic, and engaging interviewee. Written by media personality and best-selling author Elsa, this book blends real-world wisdom from hundreds of interviews with a touch of humor, grace, and heart. It's more than a how-to. It's a roadmap to presence, professionalism, and peace in every conversation.